Welcome to episode 58 of the Gambots podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and this is my co-host.
It's Christian.
On this week's episode, we're going to be talking about two movies that were released in the past couple weeks, and those movies are Cats and Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker. I think both of them are infamous for various reasons. So, Christian, first, we are going to talk about Cats. This was released on December 20th and directed by Tom Hooper. It has a lot of big names attached to it, like James Corden, Judi Dench, Jason Derulo, Idris Elba, Jennifer Hudson, Ian McKellen, Taylor Swift, Rebel Wilson, and Francesca Hayward. I know we're going to ultimately come down a little bit differently on this one, but what did you think of Cats?
9 out of 10.
That's a bold claim. This movie is getting savaged by the Rotten Tomato critics.
Yeah, so listen, this movie's a nightmare. Like, it's a monstrosity. And I cannot believe that it actually got made by a big studio. But having now seen it twice, and by the time this recording's published, probably a third time, I honestly, it's so wild. I really can't get enough of it.
I can't believe you like this much for two reasons. One, did you notice how horribly shot it was? It's like they freehand filming it, so the camera is insanely shaky.
Oh yeah, there's a bit where Jennifer Hudson is singing, and the camera is full on swaying back and forth.
Yeah, not in for an artistic purpose. Literally, the guy looked like he's getting tired and his hand is shaking. It was so bad throughout the movie. I went and saw this with my wife. She actually got a migraine by the end of it.
Oh my god, really?
Yes.
That sucks. Yeah, I mean, I hated it the first time I watched it. I had to leave the theater. I got some more popcorn and I hung out in the lobby for a while because I had to get out of there. But then I went back and I watched it with some friends, and honestly, taking people into it, it's so much better. It's like how you can beat the video in The Ring by making copies and spreading the curse. Like that, this is how you beat Cats, is by introducing other people to it.
Yeah, I don't agree with you. I went in there thinking this would be a fun, bad movie to watch, and I just thought it was bad. So let's just start off with the very beginning of this movie and kind of work our way through. So my first problem comes up within the first song of the movie, which is the first 5 minutes. The sound levels were off. I could not understand the lyrics because the music was too loud on it, and the first song explains what the entire plot of the movie is. So this whole time I was like, is Jekyll Cats a type, a breed of cat I don't know about? I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, Jellicle songs for Jellicle Cats. I agree, that's true about most of them. I didn't really get to know the songs until I started listening to the soundtrack on Spotify a few days afterwards, because it climbs into your brain like a worm and it won't let you go. And so I really started digging into the soundtrack, and some of the songs really aren't that bad, but I'm 100% with you. The sound mixing was all over the place. I couldn't understand really any of Jason Derulo's song.
Yeah, and so the first song's obviously where we get our first introduction of the CG, and you did it right. You saw it pre-edit and then after. So for anyone listening who doesn't know, after the first round of reviews, they went back and actually redid the CG because I guess parts of it were even worse than it currently is, and released a new cut of it. They Sonic'd the movie.
Yeah, they Sonic'd the movie after it came out.
Yeah, and not as good as Sonic.
Oh, yeah. So I went and watched this opening day, and when I came out of the theater, our movie theater had received an email that they were sending out a new version that night that we had to install on all our projectors. So
Is that the first time? Like, has that happened to you before? Like, you've worked at the movie theater for what, like 10 years at this point?
a little over 13. Yeah, so we got a copy of the Peanuts movie that was mixed wrong, and we found out that every copy of it nationwide had been mixed wrong. And so they were like scrambling to put out patches and like get hard drives delivered by courier to people before opening day. That's probably the only time I can think of this happening. But that was like an actual, like that was a critical mistake. Like there was no sound.
Yeah.
This
And then,
one, yeah, they just like forgot to render some people as cats. So during the one song, there's just a guy in a hoodie standing in the background. Judi Dench's human hand wedding ring at all is featured heavily. And I gotta say, watching it after the edits, I didn't see the guy in the hoodie, but Judi Dench's human hand still very much in the movie.
well, so I heard about the hands, so I was very observant of people's hands. These cats, they have human hands. When the Mr. Mistopheles or whatever his name, the magician, like he does a lot of stuff with his hands in front of the camera. He
Yep.
clearly has human hands. Like they did not, like they stopped wrist down doing CG for that, which I thought, well, number one, I hate the art direction they went with this. So I don't know why they just didn't fully commit and do his hands. Also, some of the cats randomly were wearing shoes and some weren't. Was that an accident or a choice?
Well, I mean, two of the cats have sneakers and they break dance.
Right. But also randomly throughout the movie, just some cats have shoes.
Yep.
It made sense
Hey,
for like the tap dancing guy, but anyone
like,
else it doesn't.
a lot of this is not consistent. Rebel Wilson unzips her skin twice.
Right. Like that's her superpower. Or I guess that's her magic because there's magicians in this world. Magic cats.
Yeah, so I mean we're jumping around a little bit, which is fine because this movie doesn't really deserve to be discussed in a coherent fashion. But
There's no
yeah,
plot.
Rebel Wilson unzips her skin in order to save all the cats that get magicked onto a barge. They McCavity, who is played by Idris Elba, is straight up magic. He can fly, he can teleport, he can do all sorts of things. He kidnaps people by like Thanos snapping them onto a barge in the middle of the river. And then there's Mr. Mistopheles, who for the bulk of the movie is presented as a magician, not a wizard.
Right.
Like he does card tricks and like can pull mice out of a hat. And then at the end they're like, "Well, you're magic too." And I guess they're right because he is.
Yeah.
But like up till that point, he's just like a stage magician. It makes it's wild.
So, did you see the musical?
I've seen clips of it online since I watched the movie.
So, I'm pretty sure the movie's a little bit longer than the musical, but I'm not entirely positive on that. Is there magic cats in the musical as well, or did they just add this? Because there's songs about it, so I can't imagine they added that.
I'm not familiar with it enough to know that. I'm not sure. It seems from some of the reactions of people online that the magic was surprising,
Okay.
but I don't know. Like at one point, McCavity kidnaps Ian McKellen by like sucking him into a book and yelling his own name as they disappear. Very weird.
Right. Or, oh my god. Or he burns was it Corbin, the fat cat, alive?
Yeah.
But then he's there.
And then yeah, the railway cat Skimbleshanks gets like sucked up into the air and disappears. It's very strange. We get to watch Ian McKellen lap water out of a bowl with his tongue in a closet. Like this man is knighted. So is Judi Dench for that matter. Like these people, Judi Dench and Jennifer Hudson both have Academy Awards. Tom Hooper has an Academy Award for Les Miserables, and I honestly think he should give it back.
Yeah, I mean, do you think everyone involved in this regrets doing cats?
I don't know. Like honestly, if I was one of these people, I'd fully embrace it. Like I'd just go hard. Like yes, I was in this movie and it's crazy. James Corden did an interview and they were like, "What do you think of the final production?" And he straight up said he hadn't seen it. And like it had been out for a week.
Yeah. Okay, so sorry, we're getting off track. So we get there. So what did you think of like the art style decision for like the anthropomorphic cats? Did you find anything redeeming about it?
No, it's terrifying.
It reminds me on an older episode you were talking about Courage the Cowardly Dog, where they made the episode where they combine different art styles
Yes.
and like they find it makes people uncomfortable. I think that's what happened when you take a big budget film and do CG and then have like human faces and hands. It just makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah. So I've been kind of comparing this to The Room, where I say like everything I learn about it makes me like it more because it just becomes such it's like a mystery how this thing even came into existence. But at least with The Room, it was just some guy who bought a camera and was like, let's make a movie. Like, this was a huge budget movie. This movie cost $95 million to make.
Yeah, which again makes me question why they had a shaky camera.
Like, for sure, people got fired over this.
They had to have. I mean, it's been a punchline of so many people talking about like. We'll talk about the audience scores and the critic scores later, but I entirely only saw this because you said it was funny and we were going to talk about it. Otherwise, like this would have been a hard pass for me. One thing though I did not understand in this, the cat who's well, number one, I don't know any of these cats' names except the tiger the tomcat or whatever.
Rum Tum Tugger.
Rum Tug. See, I don't even know his name. Rum Tug Tugger. I don't know any of the cats' names. I could not distinguish them. Like I could not understand what they said their names were.
So cat naming in the show is apparently a big deal. And like even in this, there's a sequence where the gray cat who's kind of in charge, who they never say his name in the movie, which is crazy. His name is Monkastrap in the show, and I guess he sings a song about how cats have 3 different names and it's really important to learn all of them, and then it's literally never brought up again.
Yeah, I thought like she was going to earn a name or
Nope.
whatever. Victoria, was that the main character's
Yeah.
name? She did not earn one. Also, the girl who sings Memories, I could not understand why everyone hated her. Was she captured by Idris Elba at one point, and they're just like, "You're evil now," even though she's homeless?
Yeah, they never really get in. It seemed to me like she used to be famous or something, and then she had like alienated everybody by being awful to them, and now she's like down on her luck, and they're all like, "Why should we care about you? You're awful."
Gotcha. Also, why was everyone interested in the main cat? She was boring.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, in the stage show, that's a silent role. Yeah,
Really?
well, I don't know if it's completely silent, but she definitely doesn't have any songs. It may be just dialogue. Like that's a dancing role.
I think the silence makes more sense than some talking because if you're silent, it's presumed like the audience becomes the character. It's like a silent
Yeah.
protagonist in a video game or whatever. Like it's an avatar for you. When she starts talking, it's just like I don't like you being like the main point of view we're getting from this world.
Yeah, so I mean we can get into that a little bit because I have that in my note. They made a song for her. They created an original song, and I'm 100% sure this was an Oscar attempt because they do this with a lot of musicals.
Ooh.
A lot of stage shows that get adapted for the screen, they'll do one original song so that they can enter it in the original song category. And the one in this one was Beautiful Ghosts, and it was recorded and released as a single sung by Taylor Swift in the weeks leading up to the release of the movie. And
Okay, so this is actually what confused me because I had heard of that song. I heard so much about Taylor Swift. I thought she was starring in this for the first half of the movie, and I was like, that looks nothing like Taylor Swift, and that's why they confused me with it.
yeah, so the Beautiful Ghost sung by Taylor Swift is a good song. Like it's genuinely really
Yeah.
good. And they gave it to Victoria in the movie, who's played by Francesca Hayward, and she's not a singer. She's a dancer. She's a ballerina.
Right.
And she has a decent voice, but it's not very strong. It's kind of high pitched and a little soft. And after listening to Taylor Swift sing that song for a couple weeks, hearing Francesca Hayward sing it in the movie was very underwhelming.
So, speaking of songs in general, did you like the music in this?
Some of it. I don't.
Which is your favorite, I should say?
McCavity's probably my favorite song, the one that Taylor Swift actually sings in the musical. It's very high energy. It's a lot of fun. I don't mind Rum Tum Tugger's song once I learned the words on Spotify, but a lot of the music is just real chaotic and real strange, which I mean the whole movie is, but yeah, like James Corden's song, not a big fan of that. Mungo Jerry and
Yeah,
Rumple
same.
Teaser, not a big fan of that.
I would say I would say the only part of the movie I actually kind of enjoyed was the singing of memories because I had always heard parts of
Mm.
it, and I never actually heard like a full version, so that was interesting enough. But I think that's about it for me.
Well, what did you think about Idris Elba?
He's one of the four cats who has clothes in that world.
Until he suddenly doesn't, which makes it all the more
Right.
upsetting.
To go to wherever that balloon sends you, you have to not have clothes, I
Yeah.
guess.
But and it's like it's especially bad because his fur is black and like sleek, and so it just looks like skin. Like he doesn't
Right.
look like a cat, he just looks like Idris Elba naked with cat ears, and it was jarring.
Well, dude, like, did you ever look in the background when they weren't focusing on anyone? It did not look like they CG'd fur on people. They looked like they're wearing
Yeah,
bodysuits.
very possible.
Oh, man. The one thing that just made me angry about this movie was they hired someone to be like a set designer, and that person has no idea what size a cat is compared to any object in the
Oh
world.
yeah, none of it made sense.
The song with Rebel Wilson was horrific. She's supposed to be a cat size. Okay, like she's as tall as a chair, whatever. I'll go with it. Then they bring out mice and cockroaches. Both of them are the same size. Both of them are the size of mice compared to humans, but she's supposed to be a cat. But the mousetrap is like almost as large as the cat is, but then they show a loaf of bread that's half the size of a cat. Have they never seen a cat loaf?
Yeah, the scales are all off. They're all like the entire movie. And when they do the Mungo Jerry and Rumple Teaser song and they go into the house and you see Victoria sitting at a dining room table and she's got like a fork and knife in her hands and they look huge because she's supposed to be cat sized, but I feel like they're definitely still too small to be human sized.
Right. I mean, at one point, like they're like this ring so big it fits on a cat paw. I guarantee you, my ring will not fit on my cat's
No,
paw.
it's crazy. And I mean,
They like seriously, Christian. That was, I think, to me more jarring than the CG. Like, there's the horrible their inability to get scale even like somewhat within the same range as like a real cat.
Well, you brought up the mice and the cockroaches and didn't mention that they also have human faces.
Yeah, I mean that was, oh god.
That's the one where, like, when I watched it alone, I screamed. Like, it wasn't loud. It was, I guess, maybe more of a gasp, but it was like, oh no.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, I couldn't believe they gave them mice and then we almost see a dog, and I was really concerned because I did not want to learn what a dog looked like in this world.
Yeah. There are just so many questionable things in this movie. I did say the only thing I liked about it was the memory song. I lied. I also liked the tap dancing song. I thought the tap dancing was well done.
Skimbleshanks, the railway cat. Well, that's another one. They go.
Yes.
They have the cats out on a on
Railroad
a
track.
railroad track, and they look like they're 3 inches tall. They are easily the
Right.
size of mice. So again, the scale, nothing makes sense in this.
Yeah, it's real. Yeah,
And I mean,
what did I not touch on that you want to go to?
I guess we
Christian?
do have to embrace that magic is real in this world, because otherwise, I mean, yeah, spoilers for cats, but like,
yeah, the real big spoilers for
Jennifer Hudson wins the Jellicle Ball choice, which means she gets to die, which is crazy, and just on its face is crazy. And so
they just send her
yeah,
in a balloon into
she
the
climbs into a
atmosphere.
chandelier, which is also a hot air balloon, and just floats into the sun, I guess. Like, at some point that's gonna run out of air, and she's coming down in the English countryside. So I mean, I guess she does get a new life in that regard, but this is crazy. For the entire last song, Judi Dench just breaks the fourth wall, stares right at you, and sings a song about how cats aren't dogs.
After Air Balloon Gone, I'm like, all right, this is over. 4 more minutes of Judi Dench singing, and I was just so mad that they included this at the end.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I just wanted it to end.
There's a point, and like we didn't even touch on the fact that this movie is incredibly sexually charged.
I can see that. I guess I read some articles beforehand, so I was expecting it to be way more like graphic
Yeah.
than it was, so I was a little disappointed.
It's very weird. Like there's a scene where all the cats are doing like a dance, I guess, and they all get on the floor and their tails pop up and like twitch and vibrate. And it was so strange. When I took my friends back to see it, all of them started screaming at the same time.
Or the fact that they all get drugged.
Yeah. Or the fact that I was 100% sure Jason Derulo was going to put Victoria Hayward's entire foot in his mouth at one point. Every choice that was made in this movie was the wrong one. Every single choice completely baffles me.
Yeah, including everyone who agreed to be part of it.
Unbelievable. But I guess I'm done. Like I said, I feel like my brain was eaten by a parasite and it's just now like hijacked my body.
This is going to stick with me because I disliked it so much. Okay, so Christian, we know this has not fared well. Do you know what this budget is? The budget was for this in the box office.
Yeah, so budget was $95 million, which is insane on its face. After its first week, it had not even made 7% of that back. After 3 weeks now, the worldwide box office is up to $57 million, which is about 60%. So after 3 weeks out, including like a full run during the Christmas season, it only managed to recoup 60% of its budget. This is a tremendous flop.
I mean, they could not also have picked a worse time to release it going against Star Wars. I mean, maybe they're hoping it would be different audiences, but oh boy, with the bad press with this.
Yeah.
Do you know if like marketing is included in that budget, or is
I think that's just production.
Man, I don't think they're going to make it back.
So I could see them releasing it against Star Wars on purpose and hoping that the low numbers, they could just explain it away by saying, oh, of course, Star Wars ate up our audience. But I think that went out the window as soon as the like crazy reviews started coming in. Like once it became like a cult phenomenon of like, oh my god, I can't believe how horrifically bad this is. And any attempt to explain away the low numbers became impossible.
Yeah, and speaking of the responses to it, Rotten Tomatoes, the critics have it at a 21%, and the audience, surprising me, has it at a 53%.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to make of that. Like, I can't tell if there's people that earnestly enjoyed this movie, or if...
There were,
That's
Christian,
crazy.
because in my theater, when I went to see it, it was me and 2 other groups. The people who sat directly in front of me loved the movie.
That's crazy. Like, I genuinely, the first
Yes.
time I watched it, I was alone, and I genuinely considered trying to join, like, the family of 6 people that was sitting behind me just for some kind of emotional support.
So you think it should be at 21% or lower? Because how about this? What would you rate this movie? I guess.
know. Like, everyone keeps asking me, was it good, was it bad? And those words don't describe it to me in any meaningful way. Like, it exists outside of that axis. It's just so weird. Like, I guess I would put it maybe at like a 21. I'm honestly shocked the critics have it that high.
I'm trying to think of how to phrase this so you can use your chaotic neutral thing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the good and bad don't really describe it in any meaningful way. The way that I wrote it down here in my notes is that this movie is chaotic evil. Like, describing this in the terms of like a D&D alignment chart is the only thing that makes sense to me. Like, it follows none of the conventional rules, and it's also not good.
I think 21% is too high, and I disagree with you. I think this movie is just bad.
like I said, I'm really only enjoying it for the crazy factor. There is no part of me that earnestly believes this is a good movie, and I am totally stunned that the critics put it as high as a 21%. I was expecting to look at this today and see it down at like a 9 or a 10.
Right. So, would you recommend our audience check this out?
Yes, with caveats. I would say don't go into this expecting really anything. Go into it expecting like a fun time. Take some friends. Honestly, I'm lucky because I get to experience things like I can run movies after we close, and so I can take employees in and we can just kind of rag on it as it's playing. That's like the ideal scenario. If you could be lucky enough to find like a show that is empty except for you and one or two other people, I think it would be a great time.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. Maybe in that scenario it would be okay because then it's like a Mystery
Yes,
Science Theater
exactly.
3000 type thing. But if you just have to go and watch this, it's horrible. It is not like I was hoping it would be a fun bad, and it wasn't. It was just boring. I felt like I wasted 2 hours of my
Oh,
life
that's
watching this. I would not recommend
yeah.
it.
Like I saw people discussing how this could become a Rocky Horror Picture situation, and I could definitely see that.
Both Christian and I watched Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, and I like went out of this one, Christian, torn. And I think as I've thought about it over the past week and a half, I know where I come down on this one. I don't really want to get in. Well, we're going to get into the plot points. I don't think we have to like recap the movie though, just because I think most people are going to see this one just because it's such a big movie. But did you like
So I'm
this?
of two minds on it. I'm kind of with you. I left a little torn, and the more I thought about it, the more I came down on one side. Taken as its own unit, if I were to ignore the Star Wars movies that preceded it and just watch this as like a sci-fi movie, I liked it. It told a story, and there were lightsaber fights, and they were fun. Cool. But taken as the finale to the series, I am not a very big fan.
Same, and it's weird because I didn't want to hate on this movie. Uh, right before we like, I got really into Star Wars right before this, so my expectations got hyped. I had just played Fallen Order, and I was all in on this movie. And the opening scrawl is just like Palpatine's still alive, and I was just
Yep.
like, wait a minute, what? So my biggest complaint of this movie is J.J. Abrams took over the helm, and this movie seems like a companion piece to The Force Awakens, and like it seems like Abrams had an idea of what the second movie should have been, and he based three off of whatever his idea was of what two should have been, and completely ignored The Last Jedi. So everything set up in The Last Jedi just became either pushed to the side or ignored or retconned, and it just kind of annoyed me. It took me out of the movie
Yeah,
in the
this
first
movie
30
went out
seconds.
of its way to be disrespectful to The Last Jedi.
Right. And I know a lot of people didn't like The Last Jedi, and I thought it was fine. Like most Star Wars movies, I think they're fine. But I like some of the directions they went with it, with like, especially Rey being a nobody, because I'm so done with like the Skywalker family. Now we have the Palpatine family.
Yeah, so I think the chief complaint for me is Rey. And I mean, I have a lot more than that, but I agree with you on a couple of fronts. Rey being a nobody in The Last Jedi was a very important part of that to me because it was like an uplifting message. It was hopeful that you can still be important and you can still be a part of major events and affect change without having this prerequisite of needing Skywalker blood or Solo blood or Palpatine blood or what have you. You like the Force can choose anyone. But instead it just became no, she's only
Right.
important because she's the Emperor's granddaughter.
Which is out of nowhere. Like I was saying, I think an Abrams movie Palpatine would have been hinted at being behind Snoke and in some way related to Rey. All we got in this one was clone body parts, so it's presumed that Snoke was a clone. And then it's just like, yep, he's her grandpa. And if you did not watch the trailer for this, which I watched after the fact, or you did not watch what I think some Fortnite event had information on this, it's literally, if you watch The Last Jedi and you go into this, Palpatine is completely from left field, and it just feels like it's pandering.
Yeah, it's not great.
So, in Star Wars fashion, this is sort of an adventure film, and we go to a bunch of different locales, and everyone has force powers now and stuff. But the big central focus on this was the relationship between Rey and Kylo Ren. What did you think of that? Fine.
Honestly, I didn't really care about their relationship until the end of this movie, and then it made me care for like 5 minutes, and then it made me stop caring again.
I wish they had gone the direction that The Last Jedi did, because at the end of that one, it was positing that Kylo Ren was completely committed to the dark side. He went to kill his master. He was no longer wavering, and the way you thought it was going was an actual showdown between the two. We enter here, Kylo Ren once again is like unsure about joining the dark side, and now him and Rey still have the Force connection, which the second one said Snoke was doing it. Apparently now they're a Force dyad, which is never explained what it is, and also they can pass objects between each other.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was just their connection getting stronger, because in Last Jedi they could see each other and talk to each other, but they couldn't see their surroundings. And now in this one they can interact through it. Like they straight up have a lightsaber fight while they're on different planets. But like, yeah. I mean, are we doing spoilers? It's been out for 3 weeks.
Yeah, dude, we're doing spoilers.
Ben turning good at the end. That's when I became like interested in his character really at all.
I actually really liked that scene. It was a good callback to the first one with Han Solo somehow coming back as a Force ghost, I guess. I thought that was a well done scene.
They did things well in this. I just feel like all of my complaints are about missed opportunities, really. Like, they didn't necessarily make a lot of mistakes. They just missed some crucial opportunities. And so bringing Ben in as a good guy, great moment. Like I said, that was the moment that I started caring about his character, is when he switched sides. The whole scene where he's coming in and he's going to fight like his own buddies and he doesn't have a lightsaber or anything, I was in. And then when he puts the lightsaber out from behind his back and does the little like Han Solo shrug, what a great moment. And then they just feel like they did a lot of characters dirty in this movie.
Oh yeah, I want to get back to that, but let's just finish with Kylo Ren and Rey. One thing I also liked is the whole time, and a lot of internet speculation about Kylo Ren's lightsaber about wavering, was that it was going to break at a critical moment, and it didn't. And I actually like the direction they went. He was wavering on actually being part of the dark side, so I thought that was good symbolism throughout. So props to them on that. That being said, the Knights of Ren were ridiculous and really served no point in this movie other than to have him fight someone at the end. And I mean, they were like Captain Phasma
through 96% of this movie.
Right. They once he actually got to Emperor Palpatine, Ben Solo was completely useless, and then him and Rey, it's revealed at the end, were romantically interested in each other, which is not hinted at all in any of the movies.
It was a weird choice. I don't know. That seemed like fan service to me.
Oh, well, so you said your biggest problem was missed opportunities. My biggest problem with this movie is it just seems like it's way too much fan service. I don't like fan service.
On the topic
to this
fan
extent.
Service, I have in my notes here, if I find it quickly. And now we're treated to the recreation of Avengers Endgame, but with Star Wars characters. So, I mean, Avengers Endgame has
Yeah.
Thanos doing his speech, and then like, I'm inevitable and I'm Iron Man. And in this one, we have the Emperor doing a speech, and then he says, I'm all the Sith, and Rey says, and I'm all the Jedi. And then that's what took me out of the movie. The first time I watched it, she does that, and I am all the Jedi, and I went, oh no, 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 no. It's literally just Avengers Endgame.
I mean, I don't understand how, I guess, the Force works now. So every Force user on the good and dark side went into each other, maybe. But I am really mad that this is the fourth in 9 of the movies that instead of having a Death Star, they have 10,000 Death Stars. When they said that, and I found out that this was the big bad end game of the movie, I actually groaned because that was a big complaint of the first one, and now they're like, you know what's more scary than one Death Star? A fleet of destroyers that have Death Star capabilities.
Oof. Yeah, mistakes were made.
Another thing that annoyed me, or I guess not annoyed me, I did not think it made sense, was Finn kept being like, Rey, I have something to tell you, and when he thought they were going to die, and then they keep bringing it up. They never reveal what it was. It was hinted that they had the romantic connection, and then she kisses Ben Solo, and it just annoyed me that why
gave an
even
interview. It may
put
have
that
been
in there
J.J.
then? It makes
Abrams,
no
but it may have
sense.
been one of the producers, and they said the thing he wanted to confess was that he was Force sensitive, which I don't buy for a second.
I mean, I guess it makes sense because he does have part of the Force, but that's not if that was what you're
No.
supposed to pick up. They did
Well,
not
he
do
meets.
a good job of
I
that.
have a lot of problems with Finn in this movie. He meets
Also,
the battalion of stormtroopers that are also defectors, and instead of taking that moment to explore the fact that all these stormtroopers are for sure people, they're not clones anymore. They're all kids who have been kidnapped and forced into service for the Final Order, and they all have hopes and wants and dreams, and they can free themselves of their programming. Instead of taking some time to explore that, Finn's just like, oh wow, I didn't know there were more people like me. Hey, do you want to come help me kill some stormtroopers? And that's all the deeper they dive
Right.
into that.
Yeah. Speaking of, so let's go into some things that Abrams retconned or just was shade at The Last Jedi. One little one I noted was Luke Skywalker coming back as a ghost and giving Rey his X-Wing instead of just flying out to fight Kylo Ren in The Last Jedi.
It was either a novelization or it was a companion book that was put out. Canonically, he had to teleport, or he had to project himself to Crate because his X-Wing couldn't fly anymore. He had taken pieces off of it.
Right,
And
then
he was
it just
stranded
does.
on that island. But apparently not.
Yeah. I mean, that's entirely, I think, fan service because people were like, why didn't he just do that? And I think that's him throwing shade at Rian Johnson. And then the bigger one, and you hinted at it earlier, it was Rose. So what did you
They
think
just
about
wrote her
Rose
out of the
being
movie.
pushed to the sideline?
She was a good character in The Last Jedi. She was 100% of the emotionality of that movie. All Rey did in Last Jedi was whine about not knowing who her parents are and not knowing what to do about Kylo. All Finn did was worry about Rey, and all Poe did was screw up every decision he made and be a very bad commander. Rose was the only one who had any real emotionality in that movie, and it, as I guess, everybody hated her online. She was forced off of Twitter because she kept getting so much hate mail and death threats and all this stuff because they hated her character. And instead of putting the middle finger to the awful fans who decided that they needed to harass this woman until she had a breakdown, he was like, you know what we should do? We should write her out of the movie.
Well, and then they didn't even have the balls to say that. They
Yep.
blamed it on Carrie Fisher's CGI. They're like, we couldn't do it because we had to do CG, which is an insanely stupid excuse.
Yeah, and the story excuse was the weakest thing in the world. Rose, you gonna come on this adventure? Like, nah, I've got to stay back here and read. Well, okay.
Right. I mean, that's just, again, they should have picked, I think, one director just to helm all three of these, so it was at least tonally consistent between all three. Even though it was directed by the same guy, this reminds me a little bit of the Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises trilogy, where Batman Begins and Dark Knight Rises, I think, have a lot more in
Yeah.
common
Well,
with
no,
each other than
I
the Dark
agree
Knight
with what you
does.
said towards the beginning. It seems like J.J. Abrams had somewhat of a roadmap, and then he just made the third one pretending like he made the second one.
Right, and you're just supposed to get on board. How? Oh my! Something that annoyed me. Not once, but twice did they pull the "up your favorite character from the past is gone forever" move. Once with Chewbacca, and then once with C-3PO, and you're just sitting there like, no way that they
I
just
thought they
kill
had,
Chewbacca or
I thought they
C-3PO,
had killed
and they
Chewbacca.
come back
I
within like
really
5 minutes.
thought they're going to clean house. Like Luke is already gone, Han Solo's already gone. Leia obviously has to die in this movie. I really thought like they're gonna kill Chewbacca and somehow they're gonna kill Lando and completely get rid of the old guard, but nope, no consequences for anybody.
I mean, right? It would, yeah. And then so another thing that I find very annoying about this movie is so they released a visual dictionary or like a visual compendium, which ends up explaining a lot of these points we're bringing up. And that's cool if you want to look into it, but that doesn't make for a good movie when you have to go outside the
Yeah, that
movie
just
for
means
you
you're a
to
bad filmmaker.
explain everything. And that's right, and that's annoying. So the whole thing with like Palpatine and all those projections was it was called like the culmination of the Sith or something, which implied there's a fan theory out there that the Sith that was not actually Palpatine himself, that was the Sith creating or animating Palpatine's corpse or whatever, things like that. And I was like, okay, that makes a little more sense than Palpatine coming out of nowhere. Like this was their whole plan, was to eventually possess Rey because she was a strong Force user and once it for all eradicate the Jedi. I don't know how true the fan theory is, but it has a lot more credence when you look into the visual compendium and they actually explain so many different points of this. But you should not have to read like a dictionary or go
Yeah,
into like in games you can go in and read the lore. Like that's
no,
not
they
what
shouldn't come with
that's not
homework.
what movies are supposed to be.
So, what was it?
Right.
Okay, say I'm on board for that. Like, that's not actually Palpatine. It's like a zombie that's being possessed by all the ghosts of the Sith, which is again crazy. But at the beginning of A New Hope, a lot of people thought it was nuts that Luke and Obi-Wan Kenobi lived like 10 blocks away from each other. But that's easily explained away by the fact that Obi-Wan is there watching over him, right? Like Obi-Wan is there because Luke is there. It's not a coincidence. That no longer works I mean that still works, but the same mechanic doesn't apply in The Force Awakens when the entire plot now of The Rise of Skywalker hinges around the fact that BB-8, a droid with the secret plans to Luke Skywalker's hidden location, just happens to bump into Palpatine's granddaughter in the middle of Jakku. Like yeah, I mean, you can only use that so many times before it starts getting crazy. Like, the entirety of the plot of this movie hinges around a droid bumping into some girl where like and it's absolute coincidence.
I mean, let's just even take this a step back further. Nowhere has it ever in Legends or canon universe been hinted that Palpatine had children. Which it would make sense if he was a senator, he would have, but that would have been, man, Christian, I think it's supposed to be like 30 years from The Last Jedi to these movies, and it was 30 or 40 years from like the prequels to the original trilogy. So I don't think like the ages match up for that because he would have had to have the kid before the Clone
Yeah, I don't
Wars,
know. I was
probably
thinking
even
about the
before the
timeline.
Phantom
Like, for
Menace.
sure before he got turned into Palpatine, right? Or, like, the Emperor, right? Before the Mace Windu attack. So, yeah, I agree with you. Like, he was the senator, and then he was the, like, whatever, like, the head senator in charge. So yeah, he was a prominent public figure. He obviously easily could have had a family, but you would have thought that when he was trying to win Anakin over, that would have gotten brought up at some point. Like, oh yeah, like I tell these stories about these ancient Jedi and Sith to my kids or my son, and that's why I know the story of Darth Pelagius or like whatever. It would have been just such an easy throwaway line if this was the plan all along. I mean, so there's so many obvious clues that there was not really a roadmap for this at all.
Right. I mean, that's what I'm saying when it's just like complete fan service. They're like, well, we need someone, her to be related to someone, make it Palpatine. He's the bad guy. Like, even, and I know that Disney didn't own it at this point, but even like the Clone Wars, where you actually see a lot more of the backstories between all those characters, the Clone Wars TV series, not the movie. Like it's not brought up, it's not hinted. No one ever thought that, and that's why I say it just comes out of left field for someone who's a casual fan like me, right? Like it just and I did not like that choice. I thought
So
it
I
was
mean,
stupid.
we've obviously got strong opinions. We're running a little long. What did you think of the end game here? Like, how where did you think? How did you feel about where all these characters ended up at the end?
I just spent what 20 20 minutes ragging on it. Overall, like I thought the movie's fine. It's not my favorite Star Wars movie. I don't think it's worse than The Phantom Menace, which I think is my least favorite movie of the series, but it's low on the list of like Star Wars movies I like, but still it's not a bad movie. I think it has the spirit of Star Wars. I just did not like the direction they went with everything just kind of not being explained or things just coming out of nowhere. I thought they should have handled it better for being the end of the
Yeah, I
Skywalker
was. I mean,
nine
I was a little
movies.
bummed out about the ending
What
choices.
what
Like,
about you?
Rey moves to Tatooine to be alone in the desert, and so it's basically just like she went nowhere. Like she's alone in the desert in the beginning of Force Awakens, and she's alone in the desert at the end of Rise of Skywalker. Like that didn't feel good.
I thought the final fight with Palpatine was cool, even though I don't know how much sense it made canonically. Like, or not canonically, but I guess in the world, I'm wondering if the more Jedi and Sith die, does like the Force start concentrating into like beings? Because when she is fighting them, you heard all the past Jedi voices, not and surprisingly, not only from the movies but
That was
from
really
the
cool.
cartoon
Like I
series
really
as
enjoyed
well, which I thought was a
hearing
nice touch.
Yoda and Samuel L. Jackson and Qui Gon Jinn and Ewan McGregor like that. That was a really neat moment.
Yeah, that was cool. I did not think it made a ton of sense, but
Yeah,
it
and
was
I'm
a
bummed
very
out she
cool
took the
moment.
name Skywalker. I thought that was dumb. That's what I mean. Like,
Yeah, she didn't spend that much time with Luke. But also, like, you could say the same with Yoda. Like, Luke
yeah, I
loved
guess
Yoda, but
like
we saw him
she
hang
had
out with him
that
for like three
casual
hours.
teacher-student relationship with Luke, but she seemed to have genuine emotional connections to Han and Leia and Ben, and so it seemed like it would have made more sense to me that she should have been a solo.
Right, I do agree with you on that. We are running out on time. So budget on this one was 275 million, and box office so far is 919.6 million, which is surprising. I mean, it's doing very
Yeah.
well, but it's
This
surprising
didn't
that
do
they did
well at our
not break a
theater. Like
billion yet.
I was shocked. We were we got absolutely creamed when Frozen 2 came out, and I expected this to be a little bit even bigger than that. Frozen 2 sold out something like 10 times opening weekend here, and Rise of Jedi sold out twice. I
I
don't,
honestly think people are getting Star Wars fatigue,
yeah.
man. Like, Solo didn't do that great, and I mean, I like Solo well enough, but you have the Mandalorian now. You have Disney Plus ramming stuff down your throat, which I like the Mandalorian, but before it was you get a Star Wars movie once in a blue moon. You get 5 in 5 years. I think people are slowly getting burned out to the extent that they were before. I mean, it still obviously succeeded in the box office. Do you know how this fared with critics?
Not super good. Not compared to the others. I mean, most of the Star Wars are at like a 70% or higher on Rotten Tomatoes. This has a 54%. Audience is at 86. I'm probably somewhere in between those.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's a 54. I'd probably put it in the high 60, low 70 range. Like I said, I know we griped a lot about it, but at the end of the day, like it's fine. It's an okay movie.
Yeah, I mean it's a space
Right.
opera. Like it is what it is. It's never gonna make perfect sense.
Yeah.
But I will say her lightsaber at the end, big fan.
The yellow or gold colored one. Yeah, I think that's the Guardian or Sentry or whatever the people used to. If the meetings still have the old ones, they're supposed to like be part, like live with the people and just help the common man. That's allegedly Palpatine feared them the most because they could blend in the best outside the Jedi temples. I will say after seeing this, I'm still firmly in the opinion that I like all of the side stuff in Star Wars better than I like the main movies. Like, this didn't change me. I like the story in Fallen Order. I love Knights of the Old Republic. I liked some of the books I read. I think the Darth Vader comics that Marvel is releasing, or they've been releasing for a couple years now, are great. It's just unfortunate you all know where the end point's going. I'm really also Mandalorian. Mandalorian's really good too. I'm looking forward to them getting out of just this 70-year period or whatever it is and just going somewhere different with it so we can get some new stories. All right, guys, thanks for listening to our episode. Before we head out, Christian, what are you going to be checking out this week?
I'd like to buckle down and finish the book that I've been working on. It was the new Sanderson that came out a while back, and I just kind of stalled out on reading in general. I watched The Grudge the other day, so I'll be talking about that next week. It was terrible. Spoilers. I'd like to watch the movie Underwater that's coming out this week. I'm a Kristen Stewart fan, weirdly enough, and she's in that, and it looks like some kind of underwater monster movies, and I'm into it. But I mean, the middle of January is typically a dead zone for movies. This is when studios put stuff out that they don't think is going to do well, so there's nothing really exciting coming out for a few weeks.
Yeah, I stupidly have spread myself very thin on video games right now, so I'm currently playing Yakuza 0. I'm trying to finally finish up The Division 2. I started playing Fortnite, like the the player versus environment thing. I still have never doing the Battle Royale, and it's surprisingly fun. It's time consuming. I sort of wish I didn't pick it up. The Platinum's supposed to be 700 hours, so I probably will never get it. But it's not a bad game. Like everyone has talked about for so long, I felt like I needed to try it out when it went on sale, so I got it just so I could have an opinion on it. Mm-hmm. And I also started playing The Witcher 3 on my Nintendo Switch, so every game I just mentioned is 100 plus platinum, except Division 2 is like 60 or 80. So I'm regretting some life choices I made. I finished The Witcher on Netflix, which we'll probably talk about next week.
Oh, good, because I want to do that this week too.
And yeah, I enjoyed it, but we'll talk about that more. Movie-wise, I might go see Uncut Gems. It's getting a lot of good reviews, but I'm going to just have to see what my schedule is this next week. Alright guys, thanks for checking out our episode. Before we head out, if you would like to contact us, you can reach us at gambots.blog@gmail.com. We are also on Twitter. We are at Gambots Network. We're also releasing some articles on Medium right now. We're under the Gambots Network name. Otherwise, thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you.